Morning, everybody. It is Wednesday. Whoops, it's Wednesday. I was going to write a script about this, but I'm just going to talk frankly. I'm sorry, I'm still kind of tired. Wednesday, 8:55 a.m., February 17th. I am going to tell you about my mental illness. I was originally diagnosed as a teenager, not put on medications until I was 24. Wow. When I was 24, I went through what other people wouldn't think is a bad breakup, but to me it was probably the worst. I still think it was probably one of my worst breakups. My ex basically didn't talk to me for 3 days. I was living with him. Avoided me. I knew something was up, but he didn't say anything until the day after Valentine's Day, so February 15th, when he said, "I haven't loved you, it's been a couple of days and I just didn't know how to tell you." He broke up with me. That's my food. I went that night, went out with a mutual friend of his and mine. Smoked a lot of weed. And then it was over the course of that night that I had made the decision that I was going to end my life. I got back to the place I was actually supposed to be living at. Tried to sleep. I slept maybe an hour. Got up, grabbed the cord for my microphone, and tried to hang myself. Clearly it didn't work. Everything I tried to do it off of it would either break or blah, blah, blah. At this point, I was talking to my biological mom and told her what was going on, and she called a friend of hers former friend of hers now, who called the cops. Her friend showed up at my house with the police, and her friend took me to Emerge, where it was decided that I was going to be admitted into, I think it's called Northeast Mental Health. It's Kirkwood site. It was the Algoma, the former Algoma in Sudbury. I was there, 2 days, and I got my diagnosis. I waited like a week before I asked my doctor what it was, and he asked me what I thought it was, and I instantly, the first thing you pop up, you think is, oh, I'm bipolar. No. He said, look, at this point I think I was already moved on to the floor where I had access to the computer. And he said, look, you have I believe you have borderline personality disorder. It's such an uncommon diagnosis. It's common, but it's uncommon. It's also very misunderstood. He said, look it up. And if you don't believe me, then we'll figure out what you have. We'll figure out what your diagnosis is. I looked up the info on it, and it was pretty much like reading my life story. I had all of the traits. I was actually very classic borderline, if there's such a thing. Hadn't really dealt with addiction at that point, but that came. I got discharged, got readmitted for 2 weeks. Then May 3rd, 25th birthday. I woke up in the morning. I had been drinking the night before for my birthday. Like a pre... My birthday? Yeah, because yeah, it was my birthday. Keep in mind, guys, I'm 32 now. My 25th birthday, which would have been May 3rd, 2008. I woke up basically with it in my head that I wasn't going to make it through the day. I was very hungover, and I just didn't want to go on. I was done. I was over it. I remember taking the first 10 Tylenol, and I knew that there was 10 missing out of it. The bottle was empty in the course of about 45 minutes. I walked out, told my friend who I was staying with and who I had lived with in the past, like after I'd been discharged from the hospital. And I just looked at her and I said, call. At first I think I might have said, you might have to call the cops, and then after I said, you need to call an ambulance and you need to call them now. So she did. I barely remember getting to the hospital. I remember them putting the tube down my nose. And I remember trying to hit it out, and they had to strap me in. I remember the catheter. That's one thing. There's no way that I was not going to be conscious when they put that friggin' thing in. They had to pump my stomach. The feeding tube in my nose was pumping charcoal directly into my stomach. Tylenol is horrible. It is a horrible medication. I don't even take it to this day. If I need something, not necessarily good for muscle growth, but I take Motrin if I need to, and I normally don't. I can handle pain. But yeah, next morning, I was in the ICU overnight, hooked up to everything, even for my breathing. The next morning, they moved me down to the psych ward in St. Joe's Hospital in Sudbury. So they moved me down to ground floor psych, where I met the one person that changed my life, and not for the better. He passed away just over a year ago, so I'm free to talk about him. I met the next relationship I'd end up in. Oh, never mind the fact that I ended up almost hooking up with someone in the hospital the first time before he got hooked up with someone in the hospital. Anyhow, I met James in ground floor psych. I don't think I realized he was an addict right away, let alone that he was a junkie, because I really had never come across anyone that was a needle user. I met him, and we started dating while we were in psych. I think we got caught holding hands twice. And I didn't realize that it wasn't from his medication, that I thought it was, oh, some meds that the doctor gave him that was causing him to go on the nod. It wasn't. It was for morphine. It was because he was using while he was on the floor. I got discharged first. March 11th, 2008 is a date I will never, ever, ever forget. That was the first time I used. That was when I got my liver disease. That was the day that changed my life for the worst. It was also his birthday. First time I used, it felt, I was a counselor at a drug and alcohol recovery center. I knew about it. I'd seen people on it, but it was the best and worst pain I've ever felt. Never mind the fact he ended up missing my vein, and I ended up itchy because of stupid morphine, but anyways. I started my downward spiral. I'm sorry, I'm yawning. This is going to be split into 2 videos. This first part I'll post now, the second part I'll post tonight. Try to keep this under 15. Over the course of the next couple months, I'd end up in the hospital again. I was dating James. I was getting high all the time. Very ashamed to admit it, but I was. Morphine, hydromorphine, the Lods, anything that he could get his hands on, and he would steal from his mother. I guess is why it irritates me when I saw his obituary and his loving son of blah 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 blah. He stole from her. He basically killed his father because his father drank himself to death. I almost wish that they would have just put it out there, but what he was an addict. He got me hooked. He got me to get someone else hooked. Like, no. Anyways, this isn't about him, it's about me. He just happened to be part of it. Ended up moving from Sudbury to St. Catharines. Ended up leaving St. Catharines because I was getting fed up with him always wanting to get high, and the days that I actually didn't want to get high, he always was wanting to get high because he was always pill sick, and at that point I had never really experienced withdrawals. Let me tell you, the next couple years I definitely did. Yeah, I left St. Catharines. I stuck up my thumb and I hitchhiked. I did things I'm pretty ashamed to admit to get rides between St. Catharines and home. For a short little drive, I most certainly had sex with a guy. I'm lucky I didn't end up with any STDs, or STIs now. Anyways, I made it home. I made it back east. I lived back east for, almost a year. And then I moved back to Sudbury. And not long story short, but I want to finish this in the spot where I remember it. Ended up in psych. Did I overdose? Oh, and many one wonderful trait of being a borderline: self-harm. We'll talk about that after. Hope you guys stuck around for my 15-minute conversation.